Hello everyone, I'm Shiva Wilson. Welcome to my channel. Today I've got some weed news for you. Weed news. So today I'll be talking about the Lib Dems, the Liberal Democrats, cats, meow. The Liberal Democrats Manifesto for 2024, for the election coming up, general election that is. And I just want to quickly go into the health section that they've put on there. If you go to the Lib Dems website, click on their manifesto called For a Fair Deal, and click on the health section and go into more detail. You'll find this little bit here where it talks about drugs, specifically the harms caused by drugs. So they want to combat the harms caused by drugs by doing the following, and they've got 5 little points here as to how they're going to combat the harms caused by drugs. One of which is to do with legalizing cannabis, but we'll get to that in a bit. So firstly, they're saying that they want to move the departmental lead on drugs policy from the Home Office to the Department of Health and Social Care. So taking it away from the Home Office and putting it to the Department of Health and Social Care seems to me like a sensible move, since it's to do with health rather than the Home Office, which does all sorts of things to do with drugs at the moment. And the next point they've got is they want to invest in more addiction services and support for drug users, including specialist youth support services. So that sounds useful, helpful, yep. Investing in more addiction services and support for drug users. Support for drug users sounds good. I need support to get more drugs into my system. That's an injection there. Yeah, it doesn't say injecting in more addiction services. It says investing in more addiction services. Okay, the next point, it says freeing up police time, reducing court backlogs, tackling prison overcrowding, and reducing the harms of drug misuse by diverting people arrested for possession of drugs for personal use into treatment where appropriate. That, I think, is already being done in some places in the UK anyway. So yeah, I think that's a little bit redundant. They could have made it more legal, for example, to take drugs. Like they could have decriminalized possession of drugs for personal use, rather than saying that diverting people arrested for possession of drugs for personal use into treatment. I mean, why arrest them in the first place if you're just going to divert them to treatment? Do you understand? So if you want to free up police time, reduce court backlogs, and tackle prison overcrowding, just stop arresting people for personal drug use. And you could divert them into treatment or not. I don't know. It's up to you. Okay, the next point here, point number 4, protecting young people. This is the big one for the cannabis news. Cannabis news with me, Shiva Wilson. Protecting young people, tackling the criminal gangs, and taking skunk, in inverted commas, off the streets. So they want to take skunk off the streets by introducing a legal, regulated market for cannabis. That's not all of it though. Sales will be restricted to over 18s only. I'm fine by that. Fine by me. And from licensed retailers with strict limits on potency and THC content. Naff. What's that all about? I think that's ridiculous. If you're going to do it for over 18s, good, but maybe you could have, for example, lifted up the limit there and done like Germany's done with having a potency limit for people between the ages of 18 and 21, and no potency limit for people aged over 21. But I think what you're going to get there is, if that ever happens, you're going to get very weak weed, which is virtually pointless for many people. It won't give them any enjoyment or any medicinal benefits or whatever. So it's just kind of like, why limit the potency so much? Not recently, I mean in the past they've said the potency will be capped to 10%. I think that was either the Lib Dems or the Greens, I'm not sure. But it says strict limits on potency and THC content. What's the difference between potency and THC content? Why have they put that as two separate things? It sounds like they don't know what they're talking about. Strict limits on potency. So not so good, I don't think, because if it's going to be a legal regulated market for cannabis, presumably that means it's recreational cannabis. Um, and if you're going to have a strict limit on potency, then that kind of takes the point out of it. I mean, if you look at the medical cannabis that's on the market in the medical sector, the legal stuff that is already available, they have a wide range of potencies on there, between like, well, I think it's something like 4% or 5% THC, all the way up to 30% THC. So that's what they would call skunk here. They say they want to take skunk off the streets. Taking skunk off the streets and putting it into shops, which are on the street. So that doesn't really make much sense either. What they mean is taking it off the hands of local drug dealers and putting it into the hands of local drug dealers in shops. So a bit confused, I think they are here by what skunk is. Skunk is, as I understand it, skunk is basically the flowers of the cannabis plant, rather than something like hash or rosin or oils. Skunk is just the flowers. So that's what they sell in the medical cannabis community. I don't know if that's the right word, community, the medical cannabis space. They're selling skunk. So it's already been taken off the streets. It's gone to the medical clinics now. A bit odd that the whole thing just seems like they don't know what they're talking about. They want to take skunk off the streets by putting it into shops. But I think it's, on the whole, they're trying to do the right thing there, for making cannabis legal, but they just don't really know what they're talking about. So more research, I think they need to do some more research into what skunk actually is, and the fact that it's already legally available in medical clinics is, a bit misleading there. Okay, and the final point here they've got is treating Scotland's drug deaths crisis as a public health emergency. Oh, there you go, there's an ambulance out there. So it's a health emergency, it just happened right then. Bang, someone's just died of drug overdose. Great. Sorry about that. No, that hasn't happened, although it does happen very often. So yeah, here they say they want to treat Scotland's drug deaths crisis as a public health emergency and devolving powers for tailored solutions where necessary. I think what they're talking about there is that Scotland wanted to take control over their drug laws, because currently it's all the power is centralised in Westminster, and Scotland doesn't have control over its drug laws. They have to just take the laws that Westminster gives them, basically. And what the Lib Dems here are talking about is devolving powers for tailored solutions where necessary, because Scotland called last summer, they called for the decriminalisation of possession of all drugs for personal use to help their drug overdose death crisis. So the Lib Dems have seen that and said, yeah, we'll treat it as a public health emergency and we'll devolve powers for tailored solutions where necessary. It's a bit vague what they're saying there, but I think basically what they're saying is that they're going to let Scotland have control over their own drug laws. So, all in all, not bad as it goes for drug policies. I think, as I've said, the points are my personal points that I'm picking up on here are where they say they want to divert people arrested for possession of drugs for personal use into treatment. I think you should just stop arresting people who are taking drugs for personal use. That's my thought there. And then the next part is getting skunk off the streets and into shops, which sounds good in a way, but sounds a bit silly if you don't know what skunk is. Oh yeah, and I was just going to say, hash is a lot stronger than skunk overall. I think, from what I know about testing THC from YouTube that I've looked at, THC in skunk, which is the flowers, untreated dried flowers, skunk can be between 0% and around 30%, but sometimes it can go up to the claims that I've seen on YouTube videos, claims of 35% for skunk THC. But hash can go up to 80%, and rosin as well, high percentages there. So really, you want to take hash off the streets and put it in a shop. Taking hash off the streets, putting skunk back into the pockets of the drug dealers. I don't know. No, it's all a bit messy there. So if you're going to have strict potency controls and THC content limited, then hash has got to go. So that's no good. Yeah, I just think they're being a bit conservative about that. If it's going to be for over 18s only, perhaps they should do, like I said before, perhaps they should do something of potency controls for the 18s to even 25s, I would say. From 18s to 25s, you can have potency control. But above that, because you've gone past your developmental stage in your brain, your brain continues to develop until, I think it's the age of 27 or something, they say. But yeah, up until, let's say 25 arbitrarily. If you keep the potency there before even 21, your brain has had more chance to develop and therefore less chance of developing schizophrenia or psychosis due to cannabis use. Then you protect the young people from developing mental health disorders. And then the people who are above 21 or 25, depending on what age limit is set, the people who are above that age limit get to enjoy the full potency of the cannabis, which, I mean, for some people, they don't get much of an effect at the lower percentages, and it's just like completely pointless. You may as well be smoking CBD or vaping CBD, which has no euphoric effect. And if you're going to limit the potency, then why bother? You may as well just allow the potency to be as strong as it is and curb the ages instead. That's my thoughts, everyone. So Lib Dems, the health section of the manifesto for 2024. I've been Shiva Wilson. Free the weed. Good night.